Sometimes it's nice to take a step back from today's fast-paced action games and revisit the titles that really left a mark on us. There's never a wrong time to go back and enjoy the classics that built our love for gaming. In this video, I'll be sharing 10 single-player games that still hold up and are well worth playing again. Let's start with one of the most unusual survival games ever made, Tokyo Jungle. And unusual here is a compliment. Instead of playing as a human with weapons, you're tossed into a ruined Tokyo as an animal. You might be a tiny Pomeranian, a deer, or even a lion, but the mission is always the same: stay alive. That means dodging predators, finding food, and even starting a family in a city reclaimed by nature. It's harsh, it's chaotic, and it's surprisingly addictive. The graphics may feel dated now, but if you enjoy survival gameplay, this is one of those overlooked titles that's still worth revisiting. Next up is Chaos Legion, a title that doesn't always get the recognition it deserves. If you're into games like Devil May Cry, this one will feel right at home. The combat is fast, flashy, and all about tearing through endless waves of enemies with style. There's a story and a cast of characters that add some depth, set against a gloomy fantasy backdrop. But the real hook is the non-stop action. Be prepared though, this game doesn't hold back. The difficulty ramps up quickly, and the pace rarely lets you breathe. It can get a little repetitive if you play for too long, but when you're in the mood for pure, high-energy combat, Chaos Legion really scratches that itch. Following that, we've got Psi-Ops: The Mindgate Conspiracy, a game that stood out for putting a unique spin on the standard third-person shooter. What makes it special is the mix of gunplay and psychic powers. You're not just shooting, you're lifting enemies with telekinesis, setting them ablaze, or even messing with their minds. The combination of abilities keeps battles feeling fresh all the way through. While the story follows a straightforward path, the missions mix things up with stealth, puzzles, big firefights, and even some eerie, horror-style moments. The plot centers on infiltrating a group known as the Movement, with each boss fight pushing you to master your skills in new ways. It's creative, challenging, and the kind of game you have to play yourself to see why fans still talk about it. Let's roll back to 1999 with Urban Chaos, an early action-adventure that really pushed boundaries for its time. You step into the role of Darcy Stern, a tough cop working to clean up a city inspired by New York's darker side. What stood out was how down-to-earth it felt. You weren't a superpowered hero, just an officer dealing with gangs, solving crimes, and taking on cases that ranged from chasing down criminals to investigating murders. Back then, the semi-open world design was impressive, and the ability to question suspects, interact with citizens, and patrol alongside your partner Roper gave the game a surprising amount of immersion. It wasn't perfect. Some missions were rough around the edges, but the variety and random street encounters kept it engaging. Even quirky little moments like breaking up odd public disturbances gave the city personality and paved the way for features that later became staples in open-world gaming. Next up is Gunpoint, a standout indie that proves you don't need a massive budget to create something clever and memorable. You play as a trench coat-wearing spy who sneaks into heavily guarded buildings, hacks systems, and rewires electronics to outsmart enemies. Each stage plays out like a puzzle, giving you the tools while letting you decide how to use them. Want to rig a light switch to open a locked door, or trick a guard into electrocuting himself with a rewired circuit? The game encourages that kind of creative problem solving. The mix of stealth, timing, and freedom makes every mission feel unique. With its slick noir presentation, sharp visuals, and a great upgrade system to customize your gear, Gunpoint remains a polished little gem that's just as fun today as when it first launched. If you're a fan of the dark, grounded style of the Gothic series, then Risen will feel instantly familiar. You're stranded on a dangerous island filled with creatures, ancient ruins, and plenty of secrets, and the game doesn't hold your hand at all. There's no detailed tutorial, no glowing markers, just you learning how to survive through trial and error. It's a tough RPG, but that challenge is what makes progress so satisfying. Every skill point matters, whether you're sharpening your combat skills or unlocking new areas to explore. Along the way, you'll meet odd companions, take on demanding quests, and slowly piece together the mysteries of the island. The freedom is refreshing, though it can sometimes mean missing key quests if you rush ahead. Even so, it's a rewarding old-school RPG that still holds up today. Honestly, a modern remaster would make this underrated classic shine even brighter. Next is of Orcs and Men, a fantasy RPG that didn't get much spotlight but deserves another look. You take control of Arkale, a powerful orc warrior teamed up with Styx, a sly goblin who's as quick with insults as he is with his blade. The combat focuses heavily on melee and strategy, and while the AI can sometimes be frustrating, sticking with it reveals a surprisingly strong experience. What really makes this game memorable is the story and the dynamic between the two leads. Styx's sarcasm adds humor to an otherwise grim world, and their mission to bring down the human emperor creates a tense, high-stakes narrative. The battles play out in real time but allow you to slow things down to plan your moves, which adds a tactical layer to the action. It's not the smoothest RPG around, but for players who enjoy dark fantasy with real depth, it's a hidden gem worth replaying. At this point, let's talk about Cold Fear, a survival horror game that never really got the attention it deserved. Instead of the usual haunted mansions or underground labs, this one drops you onto a ship caught in a violent storm. The setting alone makes it feel unique. Tight corridors rocking with the waves, dim lighting, and enemies that can jump out at you when you least expect it. The shooting mechanics and controls might feel dated today, but the atmosphere still does a great job of keeping you on edge. For anyone who enjoys overlooked horror games with a strong sense of tension, Cold Fear is definitely worth revisiting. Black and White wasn't just another strategy game. It was more of an experiment in how far you could shape a living world. You stepped into the role of a god, guiding your people while deciding whether to rule with kindness or fear. Your presence in the world took the form of a huge creature, which you could train to be gentle or destructive depending on your style of play. That freedom made every run feel different. The game mixed resource management, moral choices, and divine powers, from summoning storms to throwing fireballs, giving you complete control over how you shaped your land. And the way your creature behaved, sometimes in ways you didn't expect, gave the game an unpredictable charm. For fans of sandbox-style worlds and god games, Black and White remains one of the most memorable classics of its genre. Oni is one of those action games from the early 2000s that still stands out today. With its anime-inspired style and focus on hand-to-hand combat, it offered something that felt different from other shooters of its time. The game made you earn every strike. If you missed, it was on you, which made pulling off combos incredibly satisfying. The controls gave you precise movement and aiming, rewarding players who put in the time to master it. While firearms were part of the gameplay, ammo was limited, so you had to balance gunplay with melee skills to survive. Some weapons weren't the strongest, but the mix of close combat and shooting kept the action engaging. For players who enjoy fast, skill-driven combat paired with a distinctive visual style, Oni is absolutely worth revisiting. And that wraps up the list. Hopefully, a few of these games brought back some memories and reminded you why classics never really fade. I'm curious, which one do you miss the most? And which would you like to play again today? Share your favorites in the comments. I'd love to hear them. If you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing so you don't miss future dives into forgotten gems and classic single-player experiences. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you in the next one.